Welcome to the Euro Lounge.
So, today we're joined by Stefan, my brother.
That's right.
What are we talking about today?
Talking about the European performance cars.
Oh,
And
European
why
cars
do we
in general, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And performance.
Correct.
So, what do you like European cars?
Because I work on them and I know the difference between European and Japanese or
Between
American
quality
car?
and not quality?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I guess we should start talking a bit about us. What's your performance, your automotive group? How we got here? So, I guess, well, when I was younger, when I first started the shop, at the very beginning, like I was working at a Porsche specialty shop.
Yeah.
And that's all they worked on. Initially, I didn't get into these industries to work on specifically European cars. It was just work on cars. And that's kind of, I worked there for like 3-4 years, and it was kind of the uniqueness of European cars. It really got me into it. I mean, there's a lot of cool American vehicles, but Europeans are very specific in they carry a legacy.
Correct, exactly.
And
And they're different. I mean, you can like the Americans as much as the Europeans. It's just different, right?
one thing that's very interesting, and if you go to Europe, American muscle cars are super cool.
Yeah.
If you come to America, Americans are very, they love their American cars so much. So I guess the American muscle cars are a lot more preferred globally. But there's a massive, obviously there's a massive follow for European cars. Whether it's like an entry-level vehicle, performance European cars, and we'll get into that later in the podcast, but like, the difference between an R8 and a Mustang and price-wise and stuff like that. So, so we started as like working on European cars, and we just continued that way. And the name came Euro Performance just because we kind of, once we got into it, we specialized in European cars.
Yeah.
I mean, we've worked on a lot of cars. We've built a lot. We're building right now 1,300 horsepower Viper. So we work on a lot of American cars too.
Exactly.
And Japanese.
Yeah.
We've worked on a lot of RX-7s.
Yeah.
We've built some Supras.
And it's not like we don't like them.
That's right.
I love what Honda Civic, but it's
a preference.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, but they tend, I guess my thing would be to European cars would be that European cars are very, they're molded to perfection.
Correct.
I like their complexity of things.
Yeah.
You look into some BMWs like so when the door opens, the lights dim. Exactly. When you unlock the car, the fuel pump primes for 3 seconds, and like all these fancy features that like. And I guess everybody's comment is always that like European cars are so expensive, they depreciate. Sure, and I mean if you're not in that class where you can afford to buy $150,000 7 series, you don't have to.
Don't buy
but once you get into, like for us, what do you like the most? What's the cheapest high horsepower European car we've ever bought? Actually, we buy them regularly.
Yeah, we do buy them regularly.
The E90, the 335s.
The 3, exactly.
Yeah, we buy those sometimes
N54.
as cheap. The N54. We buy sometimes those as cheap as like $2,000, maybe even cheaper.
Yeah.
And they need a tune-up and they run.
Exactly.
And they push 300 and what are they?
330 horsepower.
Factory.
Yeah.
And we have some bolt-on kits for like a couple $1,000s. We get them to 450, 500 horsepower.
Yeah.
Reliably.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's the difference. What other American vehicle would you buy for $2,000 where you're putting a couple grand into it and you're pushing 500 horsepower?
Nothing. There's nothing.
Yeah. A V8 Mustang, but even that doesn't push. And most of the Mustangs up within the last generation, they were all like a solid rear axle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
there's nothing for $2,000.
And they're not $2,000.
I think the 2010, they're like $10,000, $10,000.
Yeah, like a GT.
The GT, yeah.
And they're like 300. How many horsepower are that generation GT? 315 horsepower. Yeah. That's less than an inline 6 BMW 335.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, they could be easier to work on if you've never ever opened a hood in a European.
I guess I don't know if you remember, but when we first started working on the N54s, and we did I think with the serpentine belt.
Yeah.
Remember how the charge pipe comes across the serpentine belt? We're like, this is the dumbest design ever.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we did 2 or 3, and we saw why they did it that way.
Yeah,
and so if there's a bolt in the front to remove, you can put it out of the way.
Yeah, that's
it's right there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, actually, if you don't know them, if
Yeah,
you don't work on them, you
yeah.
think they're the dumbest design. But
Yeah.
once you know what you're doing,
Exactly.
and at our shop, like we work with a lot of like the idea of working on getting your European cars fixed is very expensive. And maybe if you go to the dealership
Yeah.
with your 2008 335, they'll charge you $6,000 for a
Yeah.
tune-up.
Yeah.
But we've really filtered through what are the best and the most affordable parts for these cars to get them repaired
Yeah.
relatively inexpensive.
Exactly.
So we can provide a service like that on a 335 for relatively inexpensive.
Correct. Yeah.
I think we find them pretty reliable.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
2008 BMW X3, for example.
Yeah.
E83s. Very
Oh, yeah.
reliable cars.
Yeah.
What else would you get that's an SUV like that? You would go to an Escape?
No, exactly. No. Yeah.
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 So what is a European performance car? So I guess everybody, like, what would you say European performance car is?
For performance car, I would say
Like, where does it start? There's different levels
it's
of
different, exactly.
performance.
Because on an Audi, I would say the performance starts on an S. On a BMW, it starts on the highest, just before the M. Because an M doesn't compare to an S. It compares to an RS, right?
RS, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Audi's only got a couple more. Like, they have the
Exactly,
S4,
Yeah.
and then they go to an RS.
Yeah.
4. BMW has 335s,
Correct. Which you-
340s.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, but I
jumps
think the
into M3.
335 and 340s are equal, whereas the M's
Yeah.
are a different.
Yeah.
Different.
Well, actually, if you go back to the because we both had E46 M3 at the
Yeah.
exact same time, the
Yeah.
exact same
Yeah.
car. Just I had the Phoenix Yellow, you had the Alpina White.
The Alpina White. Yeah.
And if you look at the 330, even the 330 ZHP,
Yeah, I had the 330 ZH.
right? That's
Yeah.
true. And it was not like the difference. The difference between a 330 and
Yeah.
an M3
Oh,
is
Yeah.
they don't share like
No.
20% of the parts.
No, I think it's 75%.
It's different.
It's different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
When you go to an Audi, they're
Yeah.
like, I don't know exactly the stats, but they share most of the parts
Yeah,
between
they
the
share
S4
Yeah.
and the RS4.
Yeah.
Yeah. BMW really
Correct. Yeah.
put a lot of
Yeah.
attention to modifying and building those cars very uniquely to compete. I mean, in terms of power, I guess RS4s are fun.
Yeah.
And
No,
fast.
exactly. They're fun, fast. They sound good.
They sound really good.
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Their firing order is fantastic. It's
Yeah.
one of the best sounding engines. So going back to the performance, so I guess most people would think that a performance vehicle is a vehicle that has high horsepower.
No.
But when it comes to Europeans, most European cars make a lot of power after the fact. Like, what,
Yeah, exactly.
the lowest
Yeah.
horsepower BMW nowadays is 280, 300
Yep.
horsepower.
Yeah.
But I guess you're like luxury versus performance.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, like,
It-
what's a 7 Series?
Well, the 7 Series can have 500 horsepower.
Yeah.
But
We've built
It's
quite
a-
a few.
yeah, exactly.
We built quite a few.
Yeah.
4.4 liter V8 twin turbo,
Yeah.
hot V.
Yeah.
We can build 550, 600 horsepower easy.
Easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
And it's a luxury vehicle.
Yeah.
Yet, they sound so aggressive and they're
Yeah.
so fast.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's the thing. When you go to a European car, a 335, even a 328, like take an N52 328 with a dual DSI intake manifold
Yeah.
with a slight tuning, a nice exhaust and headers. That's pretty much what all you can do to those. But you're pushing 260 horsepower. And that's a 328 sedan
Yeah.
pushing, 260, 280 horsepower.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a performance car? What do you get out of the Ford Mustang pushes that horsepower?
Yeah, exactly. It depends, I guess, what your budget is
Yeah.
and then what you want
Yeah.
out of it.
So I guess it's a lot easier to achieve performance with European cars versus American vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because even an A4, even if you were to go back to we keep talking BMW and Audi, I guess that's what we like.
Correct.
There's Mercedes.
There's
too.
Mercedes as well, yeah.
Those are out there too. There are people that like those cars too.
Yeah. No, I think I'd prefer Mercedes over Audi.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of Audis.
Yeah.
over the years. We still have some Audis. But what I was saying is, like, you go to an Audi A4, whether it's a 1.6, 2 liter,
Yeah.
or 1.8 back in the day, the B5 generation.
Yeah.
You could take those and you can tune them relatively easy. You can do it in your garage.
Well, we built the 1.8.
yeah,
Audi A4.
Yeah. That went from like 350 to 400 to 500 to 600 plus
I think
horsepower.
we went, at the end it was 750.
Okay, but that's just like maybe
Yeah.
maybe one day we can talk about maybe one podcast we'll talk about the vehicles that we have built at our shop.
Yeah.
Some of the unique projects that we've done. But the 1.8 V5, take the KO3, throw it out, put a KO4.
Yeah.
You can get those relatively cheap nowadays.
Yeah.
And you can have a really nice sounding engine. If you were to go to American vehicles, what are you getting? You have to get a Ford Taurus. Okay, maybe not a Taurus. Or Japanese, but Japanese tend to be a lot more expensive than European cars. If you were to look at it. Even Toyota Celica.
True. Yeah, exactly.
Remember that red Celica that we had with a 2ZZ
Yeah.
engine that revs to like 9,200 RPM? Yeah.
I remember.
Yet it was an expensive engine.
Yeah.
A 2ZZ nowadays, the 4-cylinder is more expensive than a 335, and
really?
you can buy the N54.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're more rare. So I guess performance, like that's the thing. It's like with European cars, performance. There's a larger scale of vehicles that can fit in the performance category.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, American is just Mustang, Camaro.
Yeah.
Just three
Exactly.
mix and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, there could be others in American.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are there?
The Ford Focus, I guess.
Ford Focus or the RS
The
or the
RS,
ST or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even that is so, in my opinion, they're so underwhelming. In terms of performance.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people, even some of the people that we know and some customers, they talk about the Kia, what is it, the Hyundai Elantra NT or?
Oh,
N.
yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, look at this car. Like, what is there to look at? How much is that car? $40,000? Let's get a price tag on that car. What can you buy in a European car for that
40,
price? Yeah, $40,000 Canadian.
You can buy a G20.
Yeah.
G20 340 for that price.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's making...
And if you spend... And they're pushing 286 horsepower. Actually, you should say 340?
Yeah, you can get a 340 for 40 grand.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're to go on Auto Trader, can you get a 340 for... BMW 340 for $20,000? You can come to us, you spend a couple $1,000, a few $1,000, and we'll give you 500 plus horsepower. Reliable.
Yeah. There you go, 50 grand. 23 grand.
$23,000.
Yeah,
there you go. 26. How many kilometers though? 140,000 kilometers. That's a
Yeah.
lot. The precision of engineering vehicles. I did some research a while back, and I was looking at the difference between American vehicles and German vehicles and what happened. And generally, I guess the history starts after World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And Americans, because they were not directly involved in the war, especially for most of the war. Towards the end, they got involved, but there was no war at their front door. So they had unlimited resources.
Yeah.
They had refined. That was the big deal with the Germans. They were like running out of refined oil. They had to get crude oil and then just really quickly refine it as fast as they possibly could so they can fill up their tanks. But your Americans had time to refine their oils. And after the war, they won the war, and there was never war at their doorstep. So they have so much oil and resources. Yeah. And they just started producing like massive horsepower, massive cars. Every American was proud to just get this massive limousine that was pushing 300 horsepower at the time, massive V8s. When Europeans, especially the Germans during the war, like Hitler wanted like everybody to have a vehicle, and it had to be as cheap as possible, as reliable as possible, and as efficient as possible. So the most countries had to like, and that when even after the war, they had to really build these vehicles that were cheaply built, or like cheap as in efficient, very efficient on fuel, make it able to, and that's gone all the way until now. Like look at the European vehicles versus American vehicles. You know, American is about the muscle. Like, I mean, things are changing lately a little bit, but it's always been about the biggest engine and this. Europeans have like, you know, look at the way BMWs, like that's always mesmerized me. How like you can take a BMW X5M. Yeah. It's pushing 600 plus horsepower, and you can take it to the track, and it's an absolute unit, a race car, and you take it on the highway, and you're getting 8 liters per 100 kilometers. And that doesn't happen just by magic. That just happened, everything that changes inside of the computer and the engine between valve lift and all the technology that they have in the engines. It's so, the precision that the European cars are built.
Yeah. Well, we remember we keep saying that a European car will run smooth until it dies.
Yeah.
That's because the computers and everything will adjust timing and everything. To
and we've had that many times.
Yeah.
Like you take an American vehicle and like the second the gap increases by thousands of an inch, boom, the car starts misfiring.
Yeah.
You take a European vehicle, and we've seen cars like, because the customers are like, my vehicle's still running after 130,000 kilometers, never changed the spark plugs. Yeah, because the computer adjusts everything so your car can run as smooth as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah.
You're losing fuel efficiency, you're building more carbon in the engine, but the engine is running.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's just so much that the computer does in a European car.
Yeah.
And it has so much that it can work on.
Exactly, yeah.
And actually, this is a good engine right here. You can take a look at the way the Vanos, the electronic works, the way the entire head is built for an American vehicle. Yeah. I guess that's why we like it a lot.
We do like the complexity of it.
Yeah. And I guess we've known them for a long time. And it doesn't have to be very, like, once you get to know them, especially if you're a car fanatic, it's just so, I find it that, like, especially the younger guys that, like, really want to get into cars and they like cars, right off the bat, an average 16 to 18-year-old, we have some co-op students that European vehicles are garbage, very hard to work on. If you spend a bit of time into wanting to learn this, watch some videos online, stick around with mechanics after hours, and you tinker with these vehicles.
Exactly. Yeah.
Once you learn the Vanos units, the Vanos systems, Valvetronic units, the DISA systems in it, what else do they have?
Everything.
You'll get to, once you learn them, it's relatively easy to work
It is
on.
easy, yeah. I remember the first time we removed it wasn't an N62, but it was an N63, the twin turbo.
Yeah.
And when you have the engine out and you look at it with all the coolant pipes, you think this is
to
impossible
put back.
Spaghetti of coolant pipes, we call it.
Yeah.
But
once you get to learn them.
Once you get to learn them, it's pretty easy.
It's pretty easy because, But we've worked on a lot of American vehicles.
Yeah.
It's just, we really prefer the European vehicles. We like their complexity.
We do like it,
Yeah. We learned a lot.
And also the way they're built, I guess the metal, they don't rust as quick, especially because we live in Canada.
Actually, that's a topic for another day, the way they build their bodies and the paint and their, like, it's true, especially if you go, especially if you go back to the mid-2000s generations, you look at some of those vehicles.
Yeah.
The 300, we have a 1991 300D. Cool story. We pulled that out of, that's a story, that's another podcast. We pulled that out of it was in a field for years. We pulled it out. We wanted to put a skid steer to lift it. You go underneath and you're like, this has been sitting in here for who knows how long. Yet it's clean.
Yeah, no rust.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. New metals, the quality of metals, the quality of their coatings versus American vehicles. There's a lot of recalls on Fords that come rusty out of the factory.
I know.
Yeah. Just like some of the trailers that we bought, these brand new trailers.
Yeah.
We bought a brand new trailer. We brought it to the shop and you were doing a full walk around inspection and the wheels are rusty.
Yeah, I know.
Like it's refurbished metals and
yeah.
But I guess, even some of the European cars are starting to go that way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. We'll cut this out. Cool topic. Some of the European models that are iconic or some of our most favorite. Maybe it's it's not achievable for everybody to buy one of those.
Yeah.
What would be your first pick? Something in the $80,000 to $120,000 range. What would be the first pick? Well, I'll go first.
Okay.
Audi R8.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorite cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Today we're still trying to get one. And why is that? And again, Audi R8, it's considered a sports vehicle.
Yeah.
It's falling in the class of supercars.
Yeah.
Because of its value and its performance. And there have been R8s out there that, the 4.2 is the exact same engine they run in the RS4s and then in some S8s.
Yeah.
It's a 4.2 liter direct injected engine.
Yeah.
Absolutely bulletproof engines. They do have their timing issues and everybody's going to complain about that. But again, you get to learn that. If you are to be a car guy and you want to work on them, it's not that complicated.
Yeah.
It does require a few tools that you can acquire for not that expensive, and you can buy the kits. They're not that expensive.
Yeah.
And if you take it to a mechanic shop and they're going to charge you, I think for an V8 R8 engine, I think we charge like $6,000 to $8,000 to get replace the timing components.
Yeah.
And those are upgraded parts. But the R8s were a lot more reliable because the JHM kit for the S4s, it comes with the R8 timing components or the RS4 timing components.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're all like aluminum guides.
Yeah.
They're better, but that's a vehicle that you can almost daily drive.
Yeah.
The transmissions are reliable, especially if you get the gated 6-speed manual, V8 engines, even the newer V10 engines. And very reliable supercars. What else? What would be your pick? If you had to pick a Porsche, for example.
Porsche? I don't know much about the Porsches.
Okay, BMW.
No, okay, BMW. I probably get a E92 M3.
E92 M3?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Just because of the V8.
Yeah.
Just because of the noise.
But actually, those are not even that expensive, but they are iconic.
No.
Actually, RS4s, for example, they've started to come down in price quite a bit.
Yeah.
I saw one not too long ago, 2009, with relatively low kilometers for $26,000 or $28,000 on Facebook Marketplace. Look at the M3s. Every single generation M3 has gone up in value.
I know. Well, remember our E46?
I know.
I sold mine for half or a quarter the price it is now.
Yeah. I mean, if you go back all the way from the E30, E36, like those, like the older the generation, the higher in value they are.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That wasn't really the case with the Audis. But I mean, some of them will. Some of them will go up in value, maybe.
Yeah. The RS, not the S.
Yeah, not the S.
DS4.
That'd be like the 335. That will never go up in value.
Yeah.
But you said, but that's not that expensive. E90 M3s.
Probably the other one would be a 1M. But those are very hard to find.
Very hard to come by.
Yeah.
He's nodding his head. He agrees. All right.
And he has the N54 engine in it.
N54 or S54?
N54, the 1M.
The 1M. Ooh.
Yeah, came with the N54.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. That would be a cool car.
Yeah.
Cool car to own.
And they're going up in value.
Of course. Yeah. My Porsche of choice, we almost had a chance to buy once. It was a 996 GT2.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? I don't know if you remember. It was yellow.
Yeah.
It was from the auction, and we had the option to buy it for $40,000.
Yeah.
But this was many years ago. It was. I don't think we could have afforded that time, and also like with all the suspension, the carbon brakes, and everything else.
Yeah, and we needed to get the carbon brakes because it got hit on the wheel. Remember?
Yeah. Hard to get.
Yeah.
Especially at that time. But look at the iconic European muscle. If you're to understand and if you are to go for ultimate performance, like even a Boxer is well balanced. Yeah. Like the Cayman is one of the most balanced, but they're slightly underrated.
Yeah.
But because they're mid-mounted engines.
Yeah.
Unlike some of the... So how is it? The Cayman engine is directly behind you. So you have to take the cover off to work on it directly behind the seats of the engine. On the 911 is in the very back and the transmission is nearest to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how it is. So on the Cayman, the engine is directly behind the seat in the middle of the vehicle. But they are less horsepower. But I mean, very well balanced, like light vehicles.
Yeah.
But if you're to, like I was saying, like if you're to take even a Boxster, like 986 Boxster, I mean, some of them had issues with the IMSs and stuff, but that's again, it can be fixed.
Yeah.
If you're a car guy and if you want to work on these cars, it's relatively inexpensive to repair them. The parts for the IMS repair on the 986 is $800. So, and what look, what did they push? A 986, 265 to 370 horsepower. That's a newer one. That's 987 or because that generation is much newer. But regardless, they're pretty.
Yeah, they're very good cars.
Yeah. So, again, we're not bashing American vehicles. It's just that we're talking about the European.
No.
How Europeans have almost perfected luxury and performance.
Correct. Yeah.
You see, if you were to look at Chrysler's pushing their Trackhawk with 1,000 horsepower.
I know.
I mean, sure.
Yeah.
And many of them have implemented a lot of European technologies.
Yeah.
And many of them have partnered with European cars. All their partnerships and the engines are built by Europeans.
Yeah. Toyota Supra.
Like Toyota Supra. We're talking about the B58 engines.
Yeah.
Very reliable, and they go in their Toyota Supras. If you guys have any feedback or any comments or anything, any topics that you guys like us to discuss here in the shop, and we can give you our personal opinion, what we've learned doing this for the past 10 years between wrapping and automotive performance, service, maintenance, modifications, what companies we work with, we collaborate with, and where we think is we can get cheaper parts, and at what point does it make sense to the balance between cheap and quality. Just leave a comment below or you can contact us through Instagram, Facebook, our phone number, email address, or send us a DM on Instagram. Thank you very much. Follow us for more.